I wrote this down that way I wouldn't forget anything, so I'm going to be reading off of this notebook. Growing up, I was raised in church. My brother and sister and I would sing in church and witnessed and felt the power of God. I knew He was real and what He expected of us. As I got older, I became a rebellious person, literally and spiritually. When you grow up in church and a strict upbringing, the world tends to look like so much fun. The devil knows how to try to tempt everybody of all ages, and it's up to each and every one of us to choose to resist those temptations. I chose to give in, and I ran as fast and as far away from God as I possibly could. Um, and with each temptation that I gave into, I went deeper and deeper into sin, and then there would be a new temptation, and then I would give into that until I was really, really, really deep into sin. Um, I was in a very dark and a deep pit of my sins, and because sin had a very strong hold of me, I couldn't see that I was in darkness. I thought, my life was one big party, and the world was my oyster. And at the age of 17, I attempted suicide. I had taken more than 38 aspirin, 325 milligram aspirin. And the last memory that I have was just feeling really tired. And the next thing I knew, I woke up in a hospital with somebody sitting beside my bed on suicide watch. I couldn't even have a telephone because they thought that I was going to strangle myself with the telephone cord. Um, I guess after I'd taken the pills and felt tired, according to the paramedics report, I was seizing and foaming at the mouth, and I have like bits and pieces of slipping back into consciousness during this time. And at one point, I remember being outside of my body, up in the corner of the room, and I was looking down on my body, and the doctor was there. His back was to me, and my mom was standing by my feet at the bed, and she asked my doctor if I was going to make it. And I remember the doctor saying that they pumped my stomach as much as they could, but a lot of the medication had actually absorbed into my system before they had gotten to me, and that he did not think that I was going to make it through the night. My mom was crying at my feet hysterically. I don't remember for sure or not if she was praying or not. I don't really have a very vivid memory of that. I continued the next several years living, or rather dying in sin, and every sin imaginable. I was drinking, smoking weed, and partying whenever possible. And I also was suffering from an eating disorder since I was 16 years old. Um, and with the eating disorder, it basically left me like a zombie. I had no energy whatsoever. And I remember a family friend who was close to me gave me a handful of Adipex to give me energy. And with that, it was kind of like I looked at it as a miracle pill because it helped me not be able to eat, but yet I still had energy. And so it was like the perfect combination for me to have the eating disorder and still have energy to be able to do things and go to work and stuff. And, I went on a binge with that for a few weeks, and then the come down from those Adipex was so horrendous that same person actually gave me Percocet to come off of them. And, you know, um, and that was the beginning of my addiction. I became addicted to Percocet for the next year, year and a half, and it consumed me. I was taking anywhere from minimum of 30 milligram Percocets to 6, 7 a day, and that went on for about a year and a half, almost 2 years. And my life literally spiraled out of control. I lost everything, my job, which I made good money, my family, my friends, my home, everything. And I overdosed multiple times on those Percocets. And I remember one vivid memory of me overdosing, and that was when I was lying in bed and I had just taken, this is very early on in the addiction. I took three, I believe, maybe four, 30 milligram Percocets, and I was laying in bed, literally paralyzed. I could not move, I could not breathe, I couldn't yell for help, and I knew I was dying. And I literally felt my spirit leaving my body. It was going down, like out of my body. And I knew without a doubt that I was dying and I was going to hell. And I could not yell for help because I couldn't speak, I couldn't scream, I couldn't move, I couldn't do anything. My body felt so heavy. And the only thing that I could think of was to think in my mind, God help me. And he did. As soon as I spoke the words, I was fine and I got up. And I still didn't turn to God after that. I still kept on with my addiction. I still kept living in sin. I I went pretty deep. Let's see. I attempted to get sober numerous times, but it was only kind of half-heartedly. I didn't really want it completely. I still wanted to, get the euphoria feeling, and eventually I had had enough and I tried to get sober. And the withdrawals were so horrible that I couldn't do it. And I remember somebody telling me about Suboxone, that they had gotten sober with Suboxone. And this when Suboxone was fairly new. And I spent $500 going to the doctor and getting the medication, and I finally had a prescription from a Suboxone clinic. And, I felt great for a while. And I was told by four different physicians that Suboxone was a miracle drug and that it would help you get off of opioids, whether it was Percocet, heroin, it didn't matter. And that you could quit after being on it for a few months, and making sure you got out of the habit of taking, snorting Percocets or whatever it was that you were doing with them. You could quit whenever you wanted to, and that it was non-habit forming, and that you wouldn't have to wean off of it or anything. And about a year and a half after being on Suboxone, I thought, I'm ready. And so I tried to quit, and I actually had withdrawals. And I thought, well, what in the world? And so I panicked, and continued to take the Suboxone. And I had tried to quit Suboxone a couple times after that, and I would be okay for like a day or two, and then I would start withdrawing again. And I just didn't understand it. And this went on for about another 6 months. And so after 2 years of being on Suboxone, I realized that the doctors, they lied. And they made a lot of money in those lies because, for 2 years, I paid them $200 every month for the prescription, um, and then I would take it to the pharmacy and get my meds. But I did that for 2 years, and they had 900 patients at this clinic. So they were banking some pretty good money, and I decided that I was done. And God had been dealing with my heart and putting conviction on me for a couple of months at this point, and I decided that I was done with that life, no matter whether it was a prescription or not, whether it was me buying it off the street or whatever. I was done, and I I had enough, and it was done. And I took my last pill on November 23rd, 2012.